I want to say, you and I were there, Joe Biden. Please step forward and be held accountable. You should not be running on character for the President of the United States.
Essentially, all of this happened, I guess you could say it started last year when Tara Reade and some other women actually came forward and accused Joe Biden essentially of acting in a way that was too familiar with them, maybe getting too close up and personal, being too familiar, kind of playing into this narrative that a lot of his critics say is creepy behavior from him. Now, his campaign immediately apologized for that and, said, he is now aware of, what this means for women and how it makes them feel or how it makes other people feel. So that was addressed. However, Tara Reade came forward again and to accuse him essentially of sexual assault when she was worked for him in the Senate. So it wasn't covered as much by the mainstream media. More progressive leaning and conservative leaning outlets, partisan outlets, were essentially more quick to cover it. But then it came to the point where the Biden campaign needed to address it.
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened, and it didn't.
First of all, 70, nearly a quarter of the public paying attention to this, that's a very high number. So clearly people in this time of coronavirus have paid attention to this overall. And that, I think, is something that should worry the Biden campaign, that you've got, and this was also true in other polls that I looked at over the weekend. In one of the major ones, it was about a quarter. That's not too different from what you found of Democrats saying that they believe it. So, and I don't know whether that was primarily Democratic women. Again, the samples aren't large enough to look with any kind of certainty about that. But it's still significant, and I don't think that he's actually. It continues to go on, and so that's always a problem for politicians. Perhaps because we've heard so much about sexual harassment in society and sexual assault, perhaps there is just among independents who are not leaning toward one party or the other, perhaps there is more willingness to just think about this in terms of all the other things that they've heard. For Republicans and Democrats, I think it is a partisan response overall. But again, there's a slight element of concern with that 20-odd% of Democrats saying that they do believe that this happened. First of all, Americans know what sexual harassment is. They know what sexual assault is, and they're very clear when you ask men and women about what constitutes assault, what constitutes harassment. Men and women are pretty much in agreement about that overall. And so this is something. We've looked historically at the percentage of women who say they've been harassed. Generally, that number is a fairly high number. If you ask about the proportion who say they've been harassed at work, the number is smaller, but still not insignificant. And some of the broader questions when Me Too first got into the news, you had an awful lot of women saying that, yes, they had faced this behavior at some point in their lives, but the Kavanaugh hearings, I looked particularly at sort of the fairness of the process, and people thought the process was fair to both people. I couldn't find any questions of the kind I've really been looking for. Is it essential to always believe the woman? I just couldn't find any questions of that sort. And I'm very curious about how many women would have said that 6 months ago and how many women would have said that today.